So it's the biggest game that English football has got to offer this weekend, with Liverpool heading to face Manchester United at Old Trafford in the Premier League. And Liverpool should be going into this one with plenty of confidence, given that there are 5 Premier League places and 22 points separating the sides going into this one. But as we saw earlier this season, doesn't always go with form, this fixture, does it? And there can be the ability for the lesser side in the rivalry to get one over the rivals. That's absolutely what we saw in the FA Cup. United securing a 4-3 victory in the quarter-finals, and that was only 3 weeks ago, of course. So a real recent reminder for Liverpool that this is going to be a tricky fixture, no matter how much United are struggling this season. And in fact, with the Premier League title on the line, as far as Liverpool are concerned, how much would United absolutely love to throw a spanner in the works of this title charge and ensure that Liverpool don't come out of Old Trafford with all 3 points? I mean, anything less than a win really would be a big dent on Liverpool, considering the form that Arsenal and Manchester City are showing. So that is absolutely the job that United know they have to do. Now, for Jurgen Klopp, of course, this selection is an important one. He has to get it right. He has to make sure that Liverpool atone for how they played last time. He has to make sure that they come away with all 3 points against a side that in theory should be weaker for them. And I think so his selection is a very, very important one. But before I kind of get into that and talk about what my team is, I do also want to talk about what went on in the last game and some of the mitigating factors that maybe weren't discussed in the aftermath of the game, because it was such an emotional one. It was a thrilling contest, wasn't it? And a really memorable game. And there was so much to talk about within it that maybe the reasons behind Liverpool's defeat weren't really looked into. And I think it's worth factoring that stuff in as we look at this one, because there's a sense of nervousness from Liverpool fans going into this one. That will always be there regardless, because it's a massive game. But I also think, like I say, there are mitigating factors involved last time that won't be there this time around, and maybe that could help Liverpool out. And the major thing I'm talking about here really is the difference in the legs that the sides had in the game. Now, you remember United came on strong in the latter stages of that game. Obviously, they equalised late in normal time and then pretty much dominant in extra time as well, despite conceding another goal in that period. So, you know, and that seemed very un-Liverpool-like, you know, to lose the legs in that period. But the reasons behind that are absolutely clear now. In the 30 days building up to that game, Liverpool were contesting the 9th fixture. That was the 30th day. That was their 9th game in 30 days they were contesting against Manchester United, whereas Manchester United themselves are only playing their 6th game. So a big difference there in terms of how much they'd gotten through. And also Manchester United had 2 free midweeks in the build-up to that game, which again, you know, a week's rest in between games makes such a difference, doesn't it, in terms of the energy. And you could see that on the pitch, that how much extra legs United seemed to have late in the game. And Liverpool, meanwhile, they hadn't had a free midweek since February 17th, which is exactly a month before. So that 30 days where they fit in 9 games in, it's weekend, midweek, all the way through. And I think that had a big say in how the game went. As I say, you know, Liverpool conceding late on, which is very unlike them, and in extra time, as I say, I thought United really were the kind of dominant force in the game in that period, and that is again because they hadn't played as much football in that period. And also Liverpool, the amount of injuries they'd had in that time, to get through the games in the way that they did was pretty impressive really. And so it's not a huge surprise, I think, that the consequences of coming through that period with such a small squad really told in an intense game like you're always going to get against United at Old Trafford, where they absolutely do not want to lose against the bitter rivals. But the good news for Liverpool going into this one is things are looking slightly different in terms of the fitness of the squad. Now, United's injuries are really racking up. Liverpool are getting a few players back recently as well, which is a real boost to the squad. And also, since the last international break, both teams have played 2 games, and also they both played on Thursday this week, so they've got the exact same build up to this game. Shouldn't be really any difference in terms of the legs they've got available or the fitness between the 2 sides, so that really could work in Liverpool's favour, really sort of level things up. And you'd think with the quality they've got, if things are even in terms of those, you know, outside aspects, then Liverpool should be able to show their extra quality and kick on. Of course, because it makes it even, that means that Liverpool have also really got no excuses not to go there and get a win. Obviously, they've played United twice already this season and haven't beaten them once, and there's a big gap between the sides, so they absolutely need to put that right. But as I say, no excuses going into this one. They have to put it right. They have to put right the hurt that they felt after the last visit to Old Trafford, and they also have to just make sure they get 3 points on board, not just to get one over on the rivals, but to keep things going in the Premier League and ensure that they can stay top of the table, moving down down to 7 games to go. It'll be after this one, so an absolutely massive one. Now, I've covered all that in the build-up and told you I don't think Liverpool have got any excuses going into this one, so I'm going to pick my side as well for this, and hopefully can maybe match up with what Jurgen Klopp goes with, though don't always get it right, but I'm going to have a go anyway. And I'll start, of course, with the goalkeeper, which is, as ever at the moment, is a really, really straightforward one. It's going to be Kevin Kelleher, isn't it? I think he's been fantastic since he's come in for Alisson. Not too long to wait, I think, now for Alisson to come back. If not next week, then maybe the week after. And you'd have to say that Kelleher has been absolutely outstanding coming in for him, hasn't he? He hasn't put a foot wrong at all. And you know, again, you're going into a big game at Old Trafford. You're not going into this panicking that Liverpool don't have the first choice goalkeeper ready, because Kelleher has been so good. And again, you know, absolute faith in him to pull out the goods again in this game. Now, I'll move into the defence and maybe start with the easy picks here, or what I would suggest are the easy picks. The first of those is Virgil van Dijk at the heart of the defence. You're going to be starting your captain in this one. He's been absolutely flawless this season, hasn't he? In his leadership skills as much as anything else, because I always expect that United, like every other side, they won't sit on Virgil van Dijk. They'll try and pull away from him for as much as they can. So he maybe won't be as busy as his partner, but he's still got a big role to play in terms of what he does on the ball, the moments he does get to intervene defensively, and also in terms of leadership and organising that back line. So again, first name on the team sheet in the back line, isn't he? So an obvious pick there. Now, alongside him, you do have options there, don't you? Obviously, Joe Gomez can play centre-half, though we haven't seen it much recently. Ibrahima Konate and Jarell Quansah are both options in that centre-half position. And we did see Jarell Quansah against Brighton, but my thinking is the reason he maybe started that game is not just because Konate played in the international break for France and they want to protect him, but I think because they always had in mind that Konate would do Sheffield United and then this game back-to-back, and you know, the first of those against Sheffield United, to build up a little bit of rhythm and then come into this Old Trafford game and be absolutely ready to go in this one, because I think he is the first choice partner to Van Dijk, and I think he absolutely has to start this one if he's fit, which he should be. There was a little worrying moment in the Sheffield United game, wasn't it, when he went down, but he should be okay for this one, and I think vital that he comes in and starts, and so that is what I expect. Now, going to move on to the fullbacks now, and I think this is, you know, it's a little bit of a selection headache at the moment for Jurgen Klopp. I think he's got a lot of options in these positions, hasn't he? Even with Trent Alexander-Arnold not fit, there's still an awful lot of players to choose from in these positions, and so I think it's a difficult one, but I'm going to tell you the ones I've gone with now, and I'll start with the right back, and I've gone with Conor Bradley there. Now, I just think, you know, you didn't start the game at Old Trafford away last time in the FA Cup. It was Joe Gomez actually operating at right back in that one. I think you need Bradley's energy in this game. Now, he was a little bit quiet creatively against Sheffield United. I think he struggled to find space because of the amount of players they had back in. It was at times it looked like a back eight really, and it was really, really difficult for him to be as creative as he usually is, or as much of a threat when there aren't the spaces there. But I think in a game like this, the energy he brings, the fact to be on that big pitch at Old Trafford will really suit him in terms of finding spaces, whether that's on the outside or the inside. He's really, really good at making that extra man in attack, and I think this game will really suit him. And I would love to see him start in that right back position. And I think he can put in a better performance than the Sheffield United one, because there will be a few more spaces to exploit. And I also like the energy he brings in terms of United are going to look to go on the counter. Going to end up in a lot of situations where it's 1v1 and you've got to defend really well, and I think Bradley's really good in terms of the energy he brings to that. So he is my pick on the right hand side. And on the left hand side, again, could be an opportunity for Joe Gomez here, could be Kostas Tsimikas picked, but I think because he's fit, again, I want to go with Andy Robertson. I think I see similarities between him and Conor Bradley in terms of, as I say, that energy, the way they play the fullback role quite aggressively, and I think Gomez has been absolutely brilliant. Don't get me wrong, this is absolutely no criticism of him. The way he's filled in that back four has been phenomenal at times this season. He's also played in midfield, of course, but I just think for this specific game, the way United are going to approach it, you need the real sort of aggression that Robertson and Bradley bring in those fullback positions. And of course, I think on this left hand side, having the balance of a left footer there is really helpful. I thought it changed the game in Liverpool's favour against Sheffield United when they brought Robertson on. And that's not to say you can't play with a fullback who wants to come inside on the stronger foot from time to time. Gomez has done a brilliant job of it this season, but I think specific games you really do need the balance of the right footer on the right and a left footer on the left. And again, I just think Robertson brings that, and he showed with his cross for Gakpo in the last minutes against Sheffield United how important he can be and how creative he can be. And I think United, because they've had a disappointing result against Chelsea last time out, a couple of disappointing results actually since they beat Liverpool in the last meeting in the FA Cup, that really their job has been made easy for this game. They're going to want to sit in, make it really difficult and hit on the counter. They don't have to show ambition in this game. And so if they are going to sit in and it's all about trying to pull that formation apart, again, that for me is why you need a natural left footer there. You don't want someone who's coming inside. That United will love to defend that problem. They won't find that difficult. I think a left footer on the left, right footer on the right will make it difficult and make it stretch United's formation and make it easy for Liverpool to try and create things against what I expect is going to be a lot of men behind the ball for Manchester United. So that is my back four. I think it gets a little bit easier from here, and maybe you'll agree or disagree, let me know. But moving to the midfield, and we do expect in that holding midfield role that Wataru Endo is going to be fit. Jurgen Klopp seemed very, very upbeat about that when he was speaking after the Sheffield United game. I do wonder whether him being left out was kind of a nod towards the fact that yes, he did have a slight knock, but also he was close to the yellow card threshold. There's only a couple more games to go till you go past that, and he can pick up as many yellow cards as he wants. So maybe there's a keeping an eye on that, because he plays a position, doesn't he, where you do tend to pick up those little fouls where you do get yellows. So absolutely expect him to come back in the holding midfield role, and how good he's been this season. Hopefully he can show it again at Old Trafford. And ahead of him, again, another easy pick is to put Alexis McAllister in there. I thought he did very, very well against Sheffield United in the holding role when he was returned there. Obviously it's not his natural role, but he does a very, very good job for Liverpool whenever he plays there. But still think it takes a little bit away from him, doesn't it? And we've seen the absolute best version of him when he's in that advanced role, and he can dictate the play in terms of an attacking sense a little bit more. And so really excited about the idea of him going straight back in there, having Endo behind him, and that balance being there between those two. There's such a really good combination, I think. So looking forward to seeing McAllister get back in there, and can he keep up his great form in terms of providing goals and assists, because he's really flying in those terms at the moment. Now, the midfield spot that's left is maybe a slightly trickier one. Again, a few options there. You've got Gravenberch is back fit, isn't he, and started against Sheffield United. Curtis Jones is back after appearing as a substitute in that game. But I don't think you're going to go with Gravenberch in this one, because obviously it's a big game. He's not maybe quite trusted in the biggest of games yet, hasn't played himself into that position yet. And Curtis Jones, I think fitness-wise, probably not ready to start this game yet. And so for that reason, I think it's going to be Dominic Szoboszlai who gets the nod. I think Szoboszlai showed this week really that there's kind of ups and downs to his game. He's still a young player finding his way. I thought he was fantastic against Brighton, particularly in the second half in terms of the creativity he showed in that midfield position. Really, really saw the best of him in that game. And then against Sheffield United, because there weren't quite the spaces there for him to run into, maybe struggled a little bit creatively, although the one thing he always provides is he always really works hard off the ball, so you know you're going to get that as a minimum. And for that reason, I don't think it's difficult to throw him in here. I think you absolutely put him into the team, because you know he's going to give you that as a minimum. And if you need to control the game late on and Szoboszlai's not working out for him again, you've got Jones there. I thought the way he changed the game against Sheffield United, the ability to just fire little passes around, keep the ball, win his duels, could be really important as a late sub in this game, Curtis Jones. So absolutely massive to have him on the bench, even if I'm going with Szoboszlai as a starter. Now, going to move into the forward line now to finish things off, and I think again almost picks itself, this one really, doesn't it? I mean, Mohamed Salah's an absolute nailed on starter on that right hand side. I got the suspicion that although he wasn't absolutely at his best against Sheffield United, it sort of seemed to me like that was a pre-planned sub really, and that they want him to be available to do the full 90 against Manchester United, don't want to push him too hard, and maybe they just thought, you know, get him off against Sheffield United, we've got other options. He's not playing at his absolute peak in this game, so I thought it was a brave sub from Jurgen Klopp to do that, but also one that could really pay off, because now you know he can go to Old Trafford and he can play all the way through the game, and if Liverpool need a late goal, you can leave him on, and that could be massive. Now, alongside him in the front line with the centre forward role, again, no doubts about this one. It's going to be Darwin Núñez. You know, he's got a goal again, didn't he? I think he's past 30 goal contributions for the season now. It shows how well he's doing, and the real steps forward he's taken this season. And absolutely has to be your starter in big games. But I think while I'm saying that, and he absolutely is the starter for me here, I do think Gakpo has got a role to play off the bench. I thought he was magnificent against Sheffield United, and absolutely everything he did. Didn't misplace a single pass out the ones he made. He created a couple of chances, and I think got 4 shots off as well. So he was so involved, and I think he was only on the pitch for around 17 minutes. Which just shows, he put in a really, really good performance as a substitute, and he has had criticism recently, but I think he has got a really, really important role to play for Liverpool between now and the end of the season. And I think this is another game where if any of the forwards are getting tired, you need to turn to Gakpo. You need to have that option there. So, he could be the late sub for Núñez if Liverpool are cruising, or if they need a goal, if you need to throw him on with Núñez or anything like that. I think Gakpo will be important there. But as I say, it's going to be Núñez for me starting. And on the left-hand side again, don't expect Diogo Jota to be back for this one. So again, a quite straightforward pick, and that will be Luis Diaz. I think, again, he's another one who's had some criticism this season. People saying that his form wasn't very good early in the season, but forgetting the personal turmoil he was going through and the fact that, of course, he had 2 knee injuries last season, but I think he's absolutely back to his best in terms of the goal threat he's providing. He's scoring goals regularly at the moment, providing assists. And I also thought against Sheffield United, particularly in the first half when Liverpool looked really quiet in attack, he always looked the most likely to make anything happen. So again, another player who's banging form, even if it didn't quite come off for him against Sheffield United. And I think, again, another one who, in a big pitch, he can get Liverpool up the pitch. He's important for that. So, going to be vital here. And also for working back and stopping any United threat on the counter. He works his socks off every time he plays. So, he's a nailed-on starter for me. And so, that's my starting 11. And one thing I want to mention, actually, before I finish up, is how important the substitutes are going to be in this game. I think Harvey Elliott, every time he comes off the bench, he makes Liverpool better. He's got a role to play. I've spoken about Gakpo and how important he can be. Curtis Jones, again, sensible player who can come in and keep the ball and win his duels and really, stop United having a finish to the game like they did last time. I think someone like Jones is important to that because he just brings control to midfield. I think he's going to be really important in terms of doing that in this game. And Joe Gomez as well. Either of those fullbacks need a rest late on. Same with the centre-half, so you need to add an additional centre-half and go 3 at the back to really see the game out. Then Joe Gomez is the man you've got to turn to. So the substitutes are going to be just as important in the as the starters in this game, I would say. But anyway, that's my starting 11, my thoughts on how the substitutes and how I think this game is going to go. Let me know in the comments whether you disagree with my selection or how you would go differently around this one and how you think Liverpool are going to get on this weekend. Always interested to hear your thoughts on that. Are you nervous about this one? Do you think you're going to see the better version of Liverpool than we did in that last version of Old Trafford, the last visit to Old Trafford? We absolutely need to see that this time around if Liverpool are going to come away still being top of the Premier League, that's for sure. So I'm going to leave it there and say, well, I'll see you next time for the game itself and my post-match review, and hopefully we're talking about another Liverpool win that keeps them top of the Premier League. I'll see you then.